I don't use this second channel for anything, so I figured instead of letting it collect dust and cobwebs like Joe Biden or something, that it would be a good idea to use it for reviews and shorter content that just wouldn't fit on the schedule of my main channel. And we're starting with a very good review for Project Hail Mary, which I just came back from in IMAX, and I'm gonna tell you all about it. Way back in 2023, I know some of you weren't even born, probably, but I had the pleasure of going to my local Barnes & Noble and picking up Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir, which was a book that I had heard was very good, and it definitely lived up to the hype. But as I was reading it, I kept thinking to myself, this would make a phenomenal movie. So flash forward a year, and my heart's desire would actually become a reality, because they announced that Project Hail Mary would be starting production, directed by Phil Lord and Chris Miller, who are two of my favorite people out right now in the industry. They wrote both the Spider-Verse movies, they directed both of the Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs movies, films that I absolutely adore, actually. But then I looked at their live-action filmography, and I noticed that the only things that they had directed in live-action were 21 Jump Street and 22 Jump Street, and I became a little nervous. However, Lord and Miller, they definitely cooked on this one. This movie is great. I think a lot of that comes down to the people that they were working with. Writer Drew Goddard did a fabulous job. Obviously, DP Greg Fraser, one of the living legends of cinematography, was shooting this movie, and you can definitely tell in the final product. This movie centers on Ryland Grace, who wakes up with 0 memories in the Tau Ceti solar system 11 light years away, and he has to save Earth. That's such a cool premise already, but it also means that for the first at least 30 to 45 minutes of the movie, Ryan Gosling has to do a lot of heavy lifting by himself, and he actually does a phenomenal job. Usually he doesn't do these sort of huge roles, he's more of a supporting actor, but in this one, he was handed the reins, and it definitely worked out. Now, don't get me wrong, it is definitely Gosling's usual character. Grace has this kind of nihilistic, millennial, sarcastic goofball type of personality that you see a lot of his movies. Barbie is coming to mind. It is kind of a similar role to Ken, but there is also kind of this deep sadness that he has about him that Gosling pulls off perfectly, and he manages to capture my attention throughout the runtime. But as most of you know, because it's in the trailers, he's not alone for the entire film. Obviously, we got the heart of the movie, Rocky. He's amazing. Once he appears, the movie definitely takes a next step up. It slows down a little bit. It's more character driven, and it really focuses on the relationship between these two guys. And even though Rocky is an alien from space with no eyes and no nose, and he can't breathe in the same atmosphere as Ryland Grace, they are pretty much a one-to-one of each other. The difference being that Grace is actually the one with this kind of shell over himself, where he's apathetic to the world and maybe a little bit doubting of himself and his abilities. And that relationship really is the core of the movie. As funny as it is to say it, it is a deeply human connection in a film that is all about humanity, in a time where that idea is very scarce and hard to believe in. And Rocky manages to shine as a character past the level of, cute factor or mascot factor or any of that. He is almost more deep and multifaceted than Ryland Grace himself. There really are only 3 main characters in this film, the other one being Ava Stratt, played by Sandra Hüller, and she is the director of Project Hail Mary, and in that role, it is kind of hard to find any emotion whatsoever. It's very understated, but leave it to Sandra Hüller, who is a phenomenal actress, to kind of find the little moments within a very hard exterior that you have to kind of dig deep to conquer. But I understood Stratt perfectly, and I think that's a testament to Hüller's performance. And I must say, without spoiling anything, there is one scene in particular involving karaoke that was a standout for me, and that is a moment that I will be kind of ruminating on for a very long time, especially because that scene was not even in the book. As someone who reads a lot of science fiction, there is something that a lot of authors love to do, which is to ground all of the fictional elements in these harder scientific ideas, and oftentimes it can get a little wordy and difficult to understand, but Andy Weir can do that really well. He can parse through these more scientific ideas thoroughly and in a way that is more comprehensible and less abstract. The problem with a film, though, is you don't have the time to get through all that, but this movie does a great job. Also, since most of the movie Grace is by himself on a spaceship, a lot of the deeper plot points are told through flashbacks. And when I found out they were adapting this story, I was really worried that it would be overly reliant on this technique and most of the movie would be told through flashbacks, but that is not the case at all. They really cut them down to the bare essentials, not making them exposition heavy or too frequent so you don't lose track of the, meat of the story. The film also looks beautiful. All of the VFX are stunning and the camera work is gorgeous. There is one shot where Ryland Grace is on top of the ship and he's looking out at the planet. I think this was in the trailer, but it literally made my jaw just drop. It was so beautiful. I could have walked out the theater right then and there and been content. Colors pop so much. I'm sure there's a lot of inspiration taken from 2001: A Space Odyssey. You can really tell that a lot of time was taken. If you have a space movie, space is the final frontier. It's one of the most beautiful parts of our universe. You have to get it right, and it nails it. It looks so gorgeous throughout the entire course of the runtime, and I nearly came in my pants. That's all I'm gonna say. I was trying to think of things I didn't love about the movie. It was obviously a little hard, but I did come up with two, and one of them's kind of cheating because it's a problem for me in the book as well, and that is the characterization of Ryland Grace. For the main character, you don't really get a lot of his backstory or why he's like what he's like. Now, one of the key plot threads is that he lost his memory going on this mission, but I don't think that's an excuse to make him feel as shallow as he is. The only other concern that I could point to is the edit oftentimes at points gets exhausting. For the first half of its runtime, I understand why it's so quick and frenetic all of the time. All the cuts are super short because we're getting so much exposition and there's so much to fill into a short period of time, and it's all exciting and new. But after like an hour of that, I was sitting there and I was going, wow, I wish it would slow down, and I wish it would take the time to get to really know these characters and get to really see the expression on these actors' faces, since they're doing a hell of a job. Now, one of the final things I'll say is I actually think I like it a little more than the book, which is going to be a controversial opinion. I think that really comes down to preference, where I love the medium of film a lot more, and a lot of the scenes were almost exactly as I pictured them in my head as I was reading, which is a really impressive thing to do, but it means that there's no real difference between the two other than which you prefer, and I like the movie more. I love being able to see exactly what's going on, and it helps that it's gorgeous. Watch this thing in IMAX, are you kidding? And this is a movie that I could recommend to literally any single person in the entire world and you would enjoy it. It could be your 80-year-old grandma who hasn't seen a movie in 3 years because they're all woke nonsense. It could be your 8-year-old son who loves space. It could be the smelly old critic who hasn't taken a shower in 3 days, and they will all find something to really latch on to in this film. It is that good. I'm giving it a 9 out of 10. I hope you will continue to stay with me as I grow this channel, and with that, I'll catch you in the next one. See ya, Space Cowboy.